Okay, major daf tonight. March's not here, I could say that, right? We only got to the Mishna, right? Yesterday, base.
Yes.
How many we got here? All right, so let's start, yeah. So, Zag the Mishnah. Base. Mishnah base, second of the widest lines down. Yes, the chorus of Megillah, Ba'ad Rishon. If you read the Megillah in Ad Rishon, when it's Abra Shana, like this year, right? You have a leap year. Then you read it in Adar Sheni. Right? So meaning if you read it in the first Adar, then back then they didn't know that they were having a leap year. So they decided as the month went on that, we need a leap year. So then they kept the regular Purim, which I imagine many people wouldn't mind doing this nowadays, right? You keep a Gish Purim, then they tell you, hey, by the way, we're going to get you another Purim.
Didn't they have a calendar? They just had to establish that it was actually happening like we do now. We know that Yom Kippur, Rosh Chodesh is Rosh Chodesh, and leap year is a leap year, but we still have to just, because of Chodesh and things like that. But didn't they just have to do that?
No, way back when?
Yeah, it's not a recent invention that they had a calendar. They just had to sign the document, basically.
No, but way back it was on a month-to-month basis. Then eventually they sort of made a calendar, right? So but that was later on. Yeah. So anyway, so you have to keep the whole Purim again. So Ein Bein Adar Rishon, well, at least not the whole Purim, but you have to read the Megillah again. And then the Gemara says, Ein Bein Adar Rishon v'Adar Sheni ela kriyas megilah matanos of Yom. There's no difference between the first Adar and the second Adar, only kriyas megilah matanos of Yom. Meaning, kriyas megilah matanos of Yom will have to be repeated, right? But everything else you'd be fine. Okay,
so the Purim seuda you wouldn't do again?
So the Purim seuda, l'chari, you don't have to do again, right?
But you could if you want to.
Yes.
Megilas Esther you wouldn't do again?
L'chari or not. I would think you did not do the Megilas Esther again. But didn't we see this the other day that the Kriyas and Megillah has nothing to do with Purim? Didn't we say that?
That's what we wanted to say. Some of us wanted to say that. Yeah.
Yes, that's that's what it seems. No, that's yeah. So that's I'm saying. So that's clearly here too. No.
The Megillah is like Zechiras HaMolek. Once a year you have to do it. So we do it another.
Right.
Right, but here we're saying you have to do it twice. Saying if you did it in Adar Rishon, it doesn't count. You got to do it again in Adar Sheni.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so let's see the Gemara. So Gemara has a three-way Machlokes. So the Gemara says, you say the Parshiyas Eves Hashavan. So the Dalit Parshiyas, we know that there's Shkolim, Zachar, Parah, and Chodesh. Yeah? So you have to, we're knowing that around, the four Shabbos is around Purim. Right? Which we'll see later on in the Masechta exactly how we do it. But either way, it sounds like that if you did it in the first month, then you're fine, and you don't have to repeat the Dalit Parshiyas. So Mani Masnisin, who's the Mishna? If that's the case, our Mishnah doesn't work according to any of these three Tanaim. The Tanya, Koras, and Megillah Ba'adar Rishon. If you read Megillah in the first Adar, and then they made it into a leap year, then you have to read the Megillah again in Adar Sheni. All the mitzvahs that happened in the first can or in the second really go in the first. Chutz mikra Megillah, except for Megillah. Right, so Megillah, according to this shita, you have to read again the Megillah again in Hadasheni. You don't read it in Hadasheni. Whatever you were noyeg in the second month you can do in the first month. The Gemara is going to explain this later. You have to read it again in Hadasheni. That whatever mitzvahs that are noyeg in the second month are not noyeg in the first, which seemingly Rav Shimon Gamliel seems to be the same exact shita as the first shita. He says you have to repeat it. But everybody agrees that hesped and tainus is also on the first adar and on the second adar, and on Yudalit and Tesvav. So you get 4 days out of saying Tachnun, right? Fine. So the Gemara asks immediately, Rosh Gamliel, Hainu Taina Kama. The last shita is the same as the first shita, right? So the Gemara answers, Amar Papa, say the Parshi is given out. The difference between their shitas is say the Parshi is the Dalit Parshi is the Tanakama Sama Lechatchila B'Sheni. The Tanakama holds that Lechatchila you'd read the Dalit Parshi in the second adar. The Ovid Berishan Ovid, but if you did it in the first adar, so then that's enough, right? Bar mi mikra Megillah, except for mikra Megillah, the afal gav the karo berishan karo b'sheni. That even though you read it in the first adar, you have to read it in the second adar, right? But meaning he's saying the Dalit Parshias really should have been read in the second. But if you read it in the first, you're okay, right? But the Megillah, you have to. If you read it in the first, you're gonna have to read it again in the second. He holds that even Mikra Megillah could be done lechatchila in the Rishon, and then you wouldn't have to do it in the second month. Afilu say the Parshias, even say the Parshias, he called Rishon, called B'Sheni. If you did it in the first, you have to do it again in the second. So that's the three-way Machlokes here. So the Gemara asks, money. So now the Gemara goes into why none of these shitas can be on our Mishna. So money, Tanakama kasha matanos. If you say the Tana is the Tanakama, so then matanos of yoinim is a kasha, right? Because the matanos of yoinim in our Mishnah says it has to be done in the second adar, and the Tanakama sounds like it can be done in the first adar. Here Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosi, and if it's Rabbi Yosi, kasha nami mikra Megillah, it's also mikra Megillah, right? So because our Mishnah says that mikra Megillah says you read it again in Adar Sheni, right? And Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosi says it goes in the first adar. And here Rav Shimon Gamliel kasha say the Parshis, and Rav Shimon Gamliel it's a kasha say the Parshis because he holds that you have to read it in the second adar. And our Mishnah seems to say that since it doesn't even mention it, must be that it's good enough in the first adar. So basically, we don't have our Mishnah is not like any one of these three tanoim. More answers Lailam Tanakama. No, really, it's a Tanakama. The Tana Mikra Megillah for who adin matanos of yoinim. When he said Mikra Megillah, he means matanos of yoinim also dahaba hatalia because matanos of yoinim is talian when you read the Megillah, right? Which we said before. I think we said what daf was it? I don't remember. We said that one of the reasons that you don't read the Megillah on Shabbos is because the aniyim get to collect tzedakah. Right, that was one of the reasons. The first reason was Rabbah because you were afraid you're going to carry in Rosh Hashanah. And then we said, I think it was who was it, Rabbi Yosef, whoever it was, said that the people collecting tzedakah not be able to collect tzedakah. So you see that there is a connection between reading the Megillah and matanos of yoinim. So that's really what the Tanakama means. So the
Do they have to give back the matanos?
What do you mean? Because
they got to give it again if it really has to be done in the second month.
You mean, can you go back to the ani and say, give it back to me and I'll give it back to you again?
Maybe, yeah.
You got
it. Just maybe by you, he's going to remember this joint amount, but most of us, he won't remember. You gave him so much, then he could get it back, yeah.
But okay, here. But I'm saying What I mean in Hilchos Tzedakah, you had in your das to give him tzedakah, no? So you can't take that back. Didn't we have that? Was that then the tinus?
Yes, but I had in my mind to be Mekayim mitzvahs matanos leevyonim, and I wasn't Mekayim it.
If he's
Right,
on
so
it, he spent it already.
So yes, I'm going to be Mekayim mitzvah tzedakah, yes, but I wanted to be matanos leevyonim, and I wasn't done.
Right,
I
he
hear
wasn't
that.
done, no, so.
No, so you think he has to give it again? That would be the tzad that you have to give it again, right? That's the tzad because you didn't al tzedakah. You got a mitzvah tzedakah. You didn't give matanos leevyonim.
Didn't you give tzedakah b'davka because you want to be yot to the mitzvah? So isn't it like an al tanai? When somebody gives matanos leevyonim, it's to be mekayim the mitzvah. He doesn't stop give tzedakah. So mechites yani can keep it.
Well, like Rabbeinu said, I mean, Mastama, the guy already spent it, right? I'm
saying, but who said that's tzedakah?
How much of a brisker are you?
When a person gives matanos leevyonim, I'm not having a brisker. When a person gives matanos leevyonim, he gives it out tonight to be yot to the mitzvah. That's what we all do. We don't stop give tzedakah. You have to give it out tonight. You bedafka mekayim the mitzvah by giving tzedakah a certain way. That's just the way we do it. I'm not saying that the guy's trying to be a miser. I'm saying that's the way he's giving the tzedakah. Whether the guy spent it or not is not the point.
What's the mitzvah matanos leevyonim?
You have to give tzedakah, but you have to say I'm being mekayim the mitzvah. You don't stop. If I stop give tzedakah on Purim, lav dafka, you're being mekayim the mitzvah matanos leevyonim.
Okay, it has to be a certain amount now. It can't just be $1. It has to be for a meal.
And you have to say I'm giving this tzedakah for matanos leevyonim. What does that mean? That's what we do.
Okay, but ultimately it's for the Evian to spend on a meal.
I understand that, but if I'm not being yot to the mitzvah, lav dafka, I'm giving it to him.
Right, I hear.
And when you give it to the honey, you're telling them if it's not matanos leevyonim.
It's not what you tell him. It's what you're doing, Lamaisa. It's not what you're telling him. It's what you're doing.
Good. So maybe you're getting. You gave a tzedakah. You gave a honey money, right? And you're supposed to get a mitzvah for it, but you didn't. Okay, but Lamaisa, you gave him money, so he can't.
Mechatesi didn't palgina on that.
Right.
I would imagine it's definitely not much of a mitzvah to take it away from him.
You're missing the point. I'm not saying the person's being a miser. The point is that Mechatesi Ani was ever yot in it. If you never had in mind that he should keep it no matter what.
So therefore what? Take it back or give him again?
Yeah. The honey can't keep it if it's not his money. You never gave it to him, Stom.
Right,
why are we making these assumptions?
Really they both have to be briskers.
We're not saying we're going to do it. We're just talking about it. We're not saying we're taking back the money, but you
I'm
didn't.
just saying, if you're not a brisker, you're over an issue by taking it away from him, if anything. It doesn't help you at all.
Okay. I don't know. I hear it's a good question. It's a good question. Yeah, very good. So Viba is okay. So that's the first teretz. That's the Chachamim. Viba is saying Eloilam Rav Shimon Gamliel. It's really Rav Shimon Gamliel. Something's missing from our Mishna. Right? There's no difference between the 14th of Adar Rishon and the 14th of Adar Sheni. Ela Mikra Megillah matanos. The only difference is Mikra Megillah matanos. Halini and Hesped with Tainus is a shaman. But for Hesped and Tainus, they're both equal. Bilu say the Parshias Laimairi, but we're not talking about say the Parshias. So since we're not talking about say the Parshias, it's not part of the what's being discussed. So you can't say that the Mishna Zalek Shimon Gamliel. Okay, fine. So Amar Rav Chia bar Avin, Amar Rav Yochanan, Hilchos Rav Shimon Gamliel, Shamar Mishum Rav Yosi, the halachas like Rav Shimon Gamliel, that says that it's the name of Rav Yosi, right? That you have to do the Dalet Parshias and the Mikra Megillah in the second Adar. Yeah, we do. See, nowadays you can't know because the Maisa. That's what we do. We do everything in Adar Sheni. We do everything in Adar Sheni. The two big shilas is the Bar Mitzvah, right? And Nebuch and Lo Yaleinu, somebody is an Avelus, and his Avelus is up. He goes into Avelus and Adar Rishon. So when is the yard site? When does somebody have yard site? Is it Yartzeit and Adar Rishon, or is it Yartzeit and Adar Sheni? Pashas is it all becomes the Adar Sheni becomes the Iker Adar, and that's when the Yartzeit is. Well, the Poskim say that if there's no Chiyuv and the Adar Rishon and you have Yartzeit, so you daven both. That's the whole nafkamina, right?
Yaakov, my Simcha has that. He was born in Iber Yor, and his bar mitzvah year there's no Iber Yor.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. So that's that's already simpler. The other way is more
So
complicated.
you're not taking us to Puerto Rico? Is that what it means?
You lucked out. If you would have had Iber Yor, I would have chartered that jet.
He would have
And
told
by the
you.
way, I
He
would
would
have
have.
done Cancun, Turks and Caicos. Like, hey,
If anybody would have come to Tainus that he made bar mitzvah in the first month, he would have told him he did it. He's doing it the second month. And the second month, he said he already made the bar mitzvah, right? Yeah.
Or you could be machmer on Taisvis by Rivka. On the 13th Iber Yor from his birth, you make him another bar mitzvah.
Right. You could do that. Yeah. But also another interesting thing is what I just want to say. Totally blanked. So how do we paskel lemai? So the Ramah does say that even though there's no chi of seuda on the Adar Rishon, the Olam has to remember this. Even though there's no chi of seuda on Adar Rishon, but it is better to be marba and seuda on Peretz is for you. On Adar Rishon, you should be marba beseuda on Purim Katan, which the Chassidim for sure do that. I think the yeshiva is already a noyig. The yeshiva is already a noyig to do it also. But fine. Even though the Iker is Pesach Sheni. Fine. So Amar of Yochanan, the Shneim, now the Gemara is going to go through what's the pshat. Like, what's the pshat of the Machlokes? Which Adar is the Iker, the first one or the second one? So Amar of Yochanan, Shneim Iker Echad Darshu, they both dash in the same pasuk. B'chol Shana v'Shana. It says in the pasuk every year. Right? So Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi Sover B'chol Shana v'Shana. It's like every other year. Ma Kol Shana v'Shana Adar Samach L'Shvat. It's always Adar that's close to Shvat, meaning the first Adar, because Adar is always right after Shvat. Afkan, Adar Samach L'Shvat. So to here, it's Adar that's close to Shvat. It's like every year, Makal Shana V'Shana, Adar Samach L'Nisan. Every year, it's Adar that's closest to Nisan. Afkan Adar Samach L'Nisan. So to here, Adar is close to Nisan. It's very interesting, this Machlokes. I mean, normally Adar is close to both Shvat and Nisan, right? In a regular year. So then you just have to pick which one is the Iker. So the first Mandama decided that closer to Shvat is more important. And the second Mandama says closer to Nisan is more important. And the difference being is whether your first Adar is more important or your second Adar is more important. Okay.
We do have a shtickle back up to Rishon and Gamliel from a previous sugya. We said that the people who the messengers were too far away for, they relied on Purim to know when Pesach was. So Rishon and Gamliel has that in his favor too. The one that's closer to Nisan is more important because the people too far away from Yerushalayim will know when Pesach is.
Right. No, he's saying because, but does that fit? Is that okay? I hear. I wouldn't have thought of that lumdus myself, but that's good. Fine, weiter. So that's the pshan the machlokes. The Gemara says Bishon Rebbe Eliezer Rebbe Yossi.
They'll know when Pesach is manoshach. If they make a second Adar, they'll know by the 14th of the second Adar. They'll know it's. I don't see how that fits.
Because it's 30 days after Purim. That's what they look at Purim.
Correct.
They look at Purim.
Correct. And if Purim is the first Adar, they'll have more time to know when it's Pesach.
Oh,
still
they'll
gonna
make
know.
Pesach and
If Purim
Adar
is the
Sheni.
They're not. They're going to know by the 14th.
If there's an Adar Sheni, they have a big problem and they don't realize when Pesach is.
But they're going to know by the 14th of the next month. That's Adar Sheni. They're going to know.
Not necessarily. 60 days or 61 days?
How are they going to know it's Purim?
Is it 59 days after Purim? Is it 60 days after Purim? Or is it 61 days after Purim? Which one?
But they get.
If there's two Adars, if there's one Adar, it's exactly 30 days after Purim.
Correct.
If there's two Adars, which one's Chaser, which one's Malay? They're both Malay, they're both Chaser. Is it 58 days, 59 days, 60 days after Purim? Which one is Pesach? When's it start?
It's going to be 60 days. They're going to know there's an Adar Sheni by the middle
both
of the Adar
Malay?
Sheni.
Yeah, Naftali, he's just saying you might be a day off, that's all, because you don't know. because
That was the original problem. There'll be a day off.
Yeah.
Which means they'll be eating chametz on the 8th day of Pesach.
Right.
That's my case.
Yeah.
You're aware that we're not even up to the daf yet.
Okay, and doctor, you're a doctor, not a lawyer. Anyways,
Parents is waiting for that.
Okay, let's see weiter. Okay, the kanoim are going wild. Here we go. Okay, so let's say weiter. Or the anti-kanoim, whichever you want to call it. So Bishlama, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, Mistaver, Taima, Dein Mavir, and Ala Mitzvahs. We're not even going here. There's a lot on this line in the Gemara, okay? That Bishlama, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi says, Mistaver is because Ein Mavir and Ala Mitzvahs. So comes the first Adar, why would you skip it over to the second Adar? Do the mitzvahs right then and there, right? Ella Rav Shimon Gamliel, my timer. What's Rav Shimon Gamliel? So now, okay, I'll just why would he say push it to the second month? So the kasha on this ein mavir and ala mitzvahs is that this is not ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. It's not yet the time to do the mitzvah, right? How do you call it ein mavir and ala mitzvahs?
Yeah, which one of them is going skiing?
Right. So to use Hanukkah as a mashal, right? So by the menorah, you're supposed to stand to the side of the menorah so you don't jump. You always the first light that you hit is that night. Meaning on the fifth night of Hanukkah, don't stand in the middle so you pass over the middle candle. Stay to the sides so you light the first one and then move along. That's because you have a mitzvah right in front of you, right? I mean, am I over on Ein Mavir and Al Mitzvahs tonight on my way to Ma'ariv if I pass by my tefillin? Right? I'm not. I don't know if that's a good mashal or not, but
because it's not Zman tefillin.
It's not this month. It's not this month. So if you say that Purim is supposed to be in the second month, or even Ein Mavir and Al Mitzvahs, it's not the time.
But we said just Megilah and matanos leevyonim. So if I eat my Purim seuda on the first month, I'm yotze with the Purim seuda.
Oh, good, but what about the Mikra Megillah?
So that I can't do. That I can't do. But other mitzvahs I can. Right, I can do other mitzvahs.
Right, but the Gemara is going according to the Shita that says that you should do things in the first Adar. So if that's the case, what kind of Ein Mavirin? It's not the time.
Rabbi, if the oil with the plug minion knew there was an option to do this, they would go for that.
Yeah.
If what?
What do you say?
If the oil with the plug minion knew was an option to break up the other festivities, they would do that.
Well, yeah. But anyway, yeah. What do you want to say about it? You muted?
No, you were saying no. It's not
saying the same thing. Okay. Anyway, so that's the kasha on this. Whatever. That's the kasha. Either way. Ella Rav Shimon Gamliel my timer. Why does Rav Shimon Gamliel say push it to the second month? I'm Rav Tavi time. Rav Shimon Gamliel mismach gula legula adif. Right, to put one gula next to another gula is better. Meaning we want to have the Yom Tov of Purim as close to Pesach because they're both geulas. Now, since they're both geulas, we'd rather have the geulas next to each other. If you're going to make Adar Rishon, so then you're going to have 60 days in between your geulas, and that we don't want to do.
The two bishvat's a gula also. Learn the B'nai Yisachar. It's also a gula.
I hear. Okay. I hear. I don't know if that's. Yeah.
Yeah. Why aren't we maverish a month that doesn't have a special mitzvah in it?
I mean, why didn't they just make an ibri or not another, and you don't have the problem?
Right,
that's what you're saying.
Make another, we don't have the
problem.
So
that really right. So that's really Gemara's in Sanhedrin, and that they couldn't. They needed because of the what do you call it? Agriculture. The only reason they did it was for agricultural reasons. So they couldn't do it until they knew agriculturally, if that's a word, that it had to be done. So they wouldn't do it even before or after. So it was really for technical reasons. But you'd be right. You'd be right. Okay, so let's see about the bottom line. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. It says to be Mekayim this letter of Purim, Hashenis, right? The second letter of Purim, right? So therefore, he said the second letter means second Adar, which is not the Pashat the Pshat, but that's how he's darshaning it. Now we're starting the daf. Vitzrich lemichtav Hashenis, Vitzrich l'chol shana v'shana. It needs to write the word Shenis. And it also needs to write the word shana v'shana, meaning each one the way they darshan. Even b'chol shana v'shana, if you just learn that from every year, havamina kikushin, we would have thought like our kasha, that maybe it only means the first adar kamash. Malon hashenis, therefore tells you shenis that it's not the first adar. You got to do it in the second adar. V'yashmin and hashenis So I would have thought that you're really supposed to keep both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni. Kamash Malon, B'chol Shavuot Shana. It's like every other year, which is you only make Adar once. It's just a matter of which Adar you're choosing. So if you needed both psukim. Rabbi Elazar bar Yosi, Hi Hashem is my Rabbi Elazar bar Yosi again who darshins out Shana b'Shana. So what does he do with this? That the Megillah says the word Shenis, and he says again Shenis. Rav Shimon Gamliel says means the second month. So what does Rabbi Elazar bar Yosi who says first month? What does he do with the word Shenis? So we buy like Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Damar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Betchila Kavu b'Shushan. In the beginning, the first year they made Purim in Shushan, and that's it. And then later they decided to make it in the whole world, right? Which means that they came out with a second. It's not a gezerah, a second Yom Tif. First they came out with the Yom Tif on how do you call it in Shushan, and then later on they came out with a second. That's the word shenis, a second Yom Tif that it's going to be in the rest of the world. Okay. So Esther sent to the Chachamim, and Rashi says the second year when they decided to make it as a chiyuv, kvuni l'dairos. She said, I want this to be forever, for all the generations. You're going to cause jealousy amongst the nations. If we're going to make this Yom Tif forever, and in all the countries, then every year the Goyim are going to get upset that the Jews are celebrating that they killed out the Goyim. So Shulchan Lahem, she sent back to them, Kvar Ksuva Ani al Divrei Hayom Lamachim al Paras. I already wrote this in the Divrei Hayomim, in the whatever they call. I don't know how you type Divrei Hayomim in the books, in the history books, in the Chronicles. Yeah, okay, in the Chronicles.
But Tiago, how's that an answer to what they said? You're still being sameach.
She's saying, yeah, but she's saying that it's already public. It's already public that
fine, but we're still. Their kind of was that you're going to be you're celebrating it. If it's written in the history books, it doesn't mean that you're celebrating necessarily. You could have kept quiet.
I imagine
two different things.
What?
There are two different things. Them celebrating it is separate from it being written in the history books.
Right. Yeah. So Rashi just says. They're going to see that what happened to them by the Yidden. I hear you, Kasha. I hear you, horror. Yeah, it's not going to be as in your face. That's what you're saying. It's not as in your face, right? You got to go search it on the internet to find out exactly what would happen that day. That's what you're saying. I hear that, horror. Okay.
Why said the Goyim know what our holidays are about anyway? They don't care. They don't know.
Yeah, but they
know the same from the history books as they do from the holidays. They see us celebrating. Why are you getting drunk today? Because we won. Okay.
We fought, we won, we ate.
Who knows? Who cares? That's it. That's all we can,
I don't know.
I don't know any better.
Then that should have been her answer. That wasn't her answer. The Gemara doesn't flow. That's my point.
However much it's Mefursim from the Yom Tov, it's already Mefursim from the
So you're adding words into the Gemara. That's not what the Gemara says, though.
Yeah.
However much it is, whatever your problem is with the holiday, the same problem would be with Divrei Hayom. That's what the answer was.
Well, but it's more in the face. That's what Akiva was saying. It's more in their face.
She says not. It's just as in their face.
Okay, it's debatable. Okay, I hear. Fair enough. Let's see. Rav Chanina, Rav Yochanan, Rav Chaviva, Masnu B'Kuli Seidemai Kolki Azuga. We had this a couple of times. Rav and Rav Chanina, right? And then it gets confusing here. Rav and Rav Chanina and Rav Yochanan and Rav Chaviva taught the Kulei Seidemai Kolki Azuga. Whenever they had this pair, right? Chalufe Rav Yochanan and Maya Rav Yonason. It wasn't Rav Yochanan. It was Rav Yonason. Right? So it's just a matter of who is the proper name who said this. But anyways, he says, Shulchalem Esther L'Chacham, Esther sent to Chachamim, Kasvuni L'Dairis, write me for Dairis, meaning put me into Tanakh. Esther wanted Megilas Esther to be put into Tanakh. Shalchula, so they sent to her, Halai Kasavti L'cha Shlishim. Wasn't it written 3 times already? Meaning in the Torah, it already mentions 3 times Amalek. And Shlomo Melech had said, this is the way Rashi explains it, that Shlomo Melech said that you can only refer to Amalek throughout Tanakh 3 times, right? So once in Shemais, and once in Devarim, and once in Shmuel. So since Hamali can only be mentioned 3 times, we cannot put in a 4th time. That's what they answered back to Esther. Shlishim v'lo riveim, 3 and not 4 times. Until they found a pasuk that was written in the Torah, Ksav Zois Ikaron, the Sefer. Write this as a memory in the Sefer. Ksav Zois Masha Kasuv Kan of Mishna Torah. What it means is write this, what's written here, and in Devarim. Zikaron Masha Kasuv in Nevi'im, and Zikaron is what's written in Nevi'im, and Besefer is Masha Kasuv in Megillah. So then, basically, what they're saying is that yes, you're only allowed to do it 3 times, but we're going to combine what it says in Shemais and Devarim. We're going to combine that as 1. So then you have that as 1. Then you have what's written in Shmuel as 2. And then if they add Megilas Esther to kesuvim, then that's going to be 3. So that's why they were able to add it. Again, the Havamina was that Shlomo Melech said you can only have 3 references to Amalek in Tanakh, and making Megilas Esther would be a 4th. And then they said no, the 2 times it says in the Torah are considered 1. Kitanai, and this is a Machlokes Tanaim. How you learn this pasuk? Ksav Zois Masha Kasuv Kan. Write this. What's written here is that the Zikaron. I'm sorry. Ksav Zois Masha Kasuv Kan. That write this. That means what's written here. Zikaron Masha Kasuv Mishna Torah. That's what it says in Mishna Torah. But Sefer Masha Kasuv in Nevi'im. Well, Sefer is Masha Kasuv in Nevi'im. Divrei Yeshua. So therefore, that's the 3 times of Amalek, and therefore you would not be able to have Megilas Esther because that would be a 4th time. Rabbi Lazar Hamaydi Aimer Ksav Zois Masha Kasuv Kan Uve Mishna Torah. What it's written here and in Mishna Torah. So that's 1. Zikaron Masha Kasuv in Nevi'im, and Besefer Masha Kasuv in Megillah. So it's a Machlokes Tanaim whether you're really allowed to add Megilas Esther into kesuvim. Fine. So Shmuel Esther ain't a matanos yadayim. So we know from Gemara and Shabbos, and this is going to be coming up again in 2 blot from now, that Esther, cloths are matama the hands, right? So then the megilah, what? So what? Matama the hands. The megilah, if you touch truma, right, then you're going to make the truma into tumah. So the question is so that's Tanakh. Any of the Sifrei Tanakh would be matama. So what about Esther? Megilas Esther, would that be matama or not? So I'm going to read them. Shmuel Esther ain't a matamas yadayim. Esther is not matama the yadayim. Remember the Savar Shmuel Esther la ruach hakodesh. Remember, does that mean that Shmuel held that Esther is not said with ruach hakodesh?
One second. It's what's written on it, or it's the fact that it's cloth and it's from a dead animal.
No. Cloth of Tanakh. No, nothing to do with that animal. No, Tanakh. They were guys on Tanakh that it makes the hands tamei.
Because what's written on it.
Yes, because what's written on it. Yes.
Oh,
so the question is Esther considered part of kesuvim or not? So if he says that it's not, so that means if it's not matama, so then it's not part of kesuvim. So Gemara is asking, does that mean Shmuel held that it's not? It wasn't said ruach hakodesh. V'amar Shmuel Esther ruach hakodesh. Never. Esther was said ruach hakodesh. So the Gemara answers, never likrois. It was for reading it. It was considered ruach hakodesh. V'loi never likasev or lichtoi. It wasn't considered ruach hakodesh. I mean, it's considered ruach hakodesh, but we were only meant to read it. It wasn't meant to be written, right? Which is quite interesting. That the whole permission that they had to read Megillah wasn't to make it into one of the kesuvim. It was just to publicize it that day, the nace, right? Which we'll see later on because there's a mission.
So what does that mean? And they were supposed to remember it forever and never write it down?
I guess so. Yeah, that's what I think. Unless maybe they write it down, but it's not meant that everybody has to read it from a cloth specifically, right? That's what.
Right,
that's what
they weren't allowed to write it becoming kesuvim.
What? I mean, you could write on. You want to see runner? You want to write it in a notebook? You're saying?
Yeah, you write it on the cloth, but it doesn't make it kesuvim.
Right. I mean, it's not an official thing, right? It's not an official part of kesuvim. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Right. To some esvei, Rabbi Meir Omer Keheles ain't a matamas daim. Keheles which is Shlomo Melech, right, was not is not Matama Yadayim either. Or Machlokes b'Shir Hashirim. And Shir Hashirim is a Machlokes. Yeah. Rav Yossi Yom Shir Hashirim Matamas Yadayim. Shir Hashirim is Matama Yadayim. Machlokes b'Keheles. Machlokes is Keheles. Rav Shimon Amar Keheles Mikule Beishamai Mechumra Beisil. Keheles is one of the kulas of Beishamai and the chumras of Beisil, which is again usually the opposite. And Beishamai is the machmer, Beisil is the makel. But here it's Beishamai is the makel, and he holds that it doesn't make tumah, and Beisil holds it does make tumah. Avarus, B'Shir Hashirim, Ve'Esther Matama Yadayim. They're all Matama Yadayim. So you see that this Bryce is saying that Esther is Matama Yadayim. So our answer is Udam Rabbi Yeshua. He holds like Rabbi Yeshua, right? Who said Rabbi Yeshua was the one that said with the psukim that you cannot include the way he darshaned the psukim. He said you cannot include it in kesuvim. So that's how we would answer it. Fine.
Does that mean that these other
the ones that aren't matami yadayim, they dafka put into closets that had mice? What does it mean?
I mean, you could have theoretically, you could have, right? I guess. Yeah. What are you saying, Akiva?
From the Brisa, you see the Brisa from Meir and Rabbi Yossi, you see that other kesuvim are not matami daim. Other Megilas are not matami daim. Those are not said ruach hakodesh either, according to these shittas.
I guess, but I'm not sure.
Is that the standard?
What the connection is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the connection between ruach hakodesh and whether it's included in kesuvim.
Right. So if that's true, then what's the Gemara's? If that's true that there is no connection, then maybe it is talking kesuvim. It's just not matami daim, like we see the Gabi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, the Gabi Keheles or Shir.
Right.
What's the Gemara's kasha? Why do you have to resort to the fact
I don't know.
that he holds like
hear
Rabbi
what you're
Yeshua?
saying. I hear. I don't know. I don't understand the whole connection, anyways, with the ruach hakodesh. But okay, let's see.
Is it talking about something written in Chachamim mean it was written by a Navi? What is?
That's what it seems. But I don't know. I mean, Esther was okay. We have to see the Gemara.
She was in a Via. No, she was in a. So how do? Okay, I'm not going to ask him. I mean,
go.
How did the Tanoim know that when the Navi had ruach hakodesh or not? How are they being so audacious to say that? How do they know?
So the Gemara is going to bring a few psukim now that
Shlomo Melech wrote half the things with ruach hakodesh, and then when he went to the bar mitzvah in Turks and wherever, so he didn't have ruach hakodesh because he was drinking mai tais. What? I hear. Person has ruach hakodesh or he doesn't have ruach hakodesh.
Right. So the Gemara is going to discuss at least a few rayas that Esther was written with ruach hakodesh. Right, a few rayas from the psukim. But let's see. So Tanya, Shimon Menasi Omer, Keheles ain't matamas yadayim. Keheles is not matama yadayim. Because it's Shloimo's chachma, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that it was l'chayr. It means it wasn't ruach hakodesh. It was just. I hate to say it like this, but don't put me in chayrim. But it sounds like Shloimo's blog. It was his blog, right? I don't know. Is that? Yeah, I'm saying it was chachma's Shloimo. That's what it was. Is this the only thing that Shlomo ever said? He said 3,000 mashalim, right? And it says, don't add more to him to what he said, right? That's a pasuk in Mishlei, Rashi says. So meaning because what was written there is written with ruach hakodesh. So my vaymer, what does it want to mean with vaymer? Why is it being a second pasuk? Pita meimar tuva. If you say that he said many things, meimar tuva amar, he said many things. The ibai ichtiv, whatever he wants, he included. He wrote the ibai layik them, and what he didn't want, he didn't include in it. Right. So tashema, meaning if that's what you think, tashema al taisav dvarav, don't add anything onto his words, which is that everything was written. There was all written with ruach hakodesh. Okay, so whatever it is, that's so. Bottom line is the Gemara is coming out that it was written with hakodesh. Fine. Tani Rabbi Esther ruach hakodesh nemra. Esther was said with ruach hakodesh. How do you know? Shanemer vayomer Haman believoi. Haman said in his heart. Now, how do you know that Haman said something in his heart, unless you have ruach hakodesh, right? Like the way Rashi says, how did the whoever? It's very interesting. If you look at the Rashi, Vayomer Haman, let's just kedai for a second. Sorry if it extends the daf. It's right where the lines get a little wider. Vayomer Haman beliboy. Yeah, Rashi says, Mino yadu kaisvei ha-Megillah shekach omar beliboy. So those that wrote plural, I think, right? Kaisvei ha-Megillah. What? I thought Esther. I thought Esther wrote it, right? I mean, it sounds like that in the Gemara.
Esther and Mordechai together.
Whatever. So the Kaisvei ha-Megillah.
She asked them to write it.
I mean, Rashi was written with ruach hakodesh also, right?
That's what they say. That's a good point. That's a good point. So I don't know. He says Kaisvei ha-Megillah. Whoever, I don't know what Rashi is referring to. Either way, okay. So never Vayomer Haman beliboy. So how did they know it was in his heart? So it must be ruach hakodesh. Kiva Aimer Esther ruach hakodesh nemra shenemar vati Esther nasas chein be'enei klareya. Esther, this raya I didn't understand. That Esther was nice chein and she was bachent and everybody that saw her. How do you know? How do you know that meaning? How do you know what was in everybody's eyes? I understand. You can tell when you see somebody. People are machshav somebody, you could tell. I'm not going to say that they were whistling or anything like that, but I'm just right. But you could tell. I don't know what's the raya, right?
Yeah, but you can't say it for certainty.
You could see when people are machshav. No,
that everybody.
I hear. I mean, you're saying kol raya.
I'm saying it's almost like we're saying it like it's a certainty, like everyone found favor in her eyes. You could say that.
I don't know.
David Stan Musial got standing ovation in Ebbets Field, and they hated him because they were mocking how good he was. Yeah, even though he was there.
That's a muscle.
I mean, with that,
Raya, no pun intended, but that's a muscle out of left field if I ever heard one.
I think that was one of the Shlomo Melch's Mishalim that he didn't want to be Tyson.
That was a good one. Okay, but I don't know. I hear. It must be that David's right. It has to be he's right. That's what it is. It must be that
another riot from baseball.
That's right. It's everything's in baseball. But
maybe they asked him in what he thought.
You know, I just got an alert from Zoom that even with our paid subscription, we're still past the limit.
So you're not taking. So take good charge, parents. Don't play mom. It's you. It's not
mute them.
Yeah, Rameir Oimer. Okay, Esther ruach hakodesh nemar. Esther was said ruach hakodesh. Shenemar v'yedei vayivoda hadavar leMordechai was known to Mordechai. How was it known to? How do you know? How did Mordechai know about Bigson and Seresh? Yeah, so therefore it must be he had ruach hakodesh. Well, Rabbi Yosef in Damascus, Esther ruach hakodesh. The obvious question on that from anybody that knows the story of the Purim is going to ask a kasha on the big son and Seresh that we know that Mordechai was part of the Sanhedrin, so he understood all the languages. That the Gemara is going to ask in a minute. Yeah, so Rabbi Yosef with the story, Esther ruach hakodesh nemra, shenemar ubabiza lo'shalchu es yodam, and they didn't in the what do you call it? The spoils after the war. Nobody used the spoils, right? So Rashi says, how are they supposed to know that nowhere in the world where the Yidden killed out the goyim that they took the spoils? How are they supposed to know that? So it must be ruach hakodesh. So Shmuel, if I was there, I would have said something better than all of them. Shenemar kimu v'kiblu, right? That they were makabel on themselves. Kimu lamala mashakiblu lamata. What it means is they were makabel, and they were makayim in upstairs, meaning in Shamayim. What the Yidden were makabel lamata, meaning in Shamayim they also read the Megillah based on what the Yidden decided to do in this world. Right, so that has to be, if you're learning that, then that has to be ruach hakodesh. So Amar Rav, Lakulu islu pirchel of Amid Shmuel.
And he's learning that's pashup pshat in the pasuk. Kimu v'kiblu. That's what it means.
Seems like it. It seems like it, but how does he know that's a pshat? Right, so that must be ruach hakodesh, right? That must be ruach hakodesh. I mean, if Rashi was written with ruach hakodesh and Shmuel, for sure. So now I'm saying, how did he know that what was going on in Lamala? So basically, you need ruach hakodesh from Shmuel to say that the Megillah was ruach hakodesh. Fair point. I don't know. Yeah. So Amar Rava, Don't say third base. Okay, right? They all have kashas. We have a kasha in all of them. The Varman, the Shmuel, except for Shmuel, the less Pircha doesn't have a kasha. Why? The Rebbe Lezer svarahu. The loy have a inish. The chashu l'malchus have a say. It's a svara that l'chayru, when Haman was thinking in his heart, in his head, in his mind, who can Achashverosh possibly want to reward, right? And that whole description, it had to be Haman in his own head. V'hai ki mafish ki and v'hai ki kamavish tuva v'amar da'id nashi kama. And this that he spoke so much about all the different things that he wanted to be done, it has to be talking about himself, right? Yeah, so it must be on his own, right? The Rebbe Kiva, after Trump, you could hear that a leader can just be thinking about himself and that everything's revolving around him, right? That's l'chara, that makes this a little bit more understandable. Yeah, so that's how he can slug up the first one. The Rebbe Kiva, that Esther found favor in everybody's eyes. Everybody knew, again, nobody knew who Esther was from, where she was from. They don't know who she was. So everybody thought that she was from their country, and they would say, Rashi says, they would say it out loud, right? They would say out loud, oh, Esther's one of ours. But in the bars, probably there was gambling. Okay, who would, bottom line is who's Esther from? And there were probably many, everybody verbalized that they thought Esther.
And Trump came out with that she was born in Hawaii. That she wasn't born in Hawaii.
Yeah. Right. V'hadar Meir. And what about Remeir? That he knew what was going on in Big Son of Sarah. They were Tarsian, right? From Tarsi. And Memela, he understood them because he understood the 70 languages. Fine. Father Rabbi Yosef ben Damascus, right? That they didn't take any of the spoils. Dilma, Christikoi Shadar, maybe there were messengers that were sent out, right? They were sent to Mordechai and Esther, Rashi says, so that they don't want to tick off the king, so nobody should go. Nobody, meaning Esther and Mordechai. Well, who sent to who? Right? No, that's right. Rashi says shalchu lahem l'Mordechai Esther. They sent to them, right? To tell them that don't worry, the king, none of the Yidden took any of the money from the guy. Fine. The Shmuel vade les l'pircha, but Shmuel is no kasha. One sharp pepper is better than a whole basket of like gourds or whatever it is, right? Meaning this is where do we have this before, right? But Shmuel is so sharp; he's even better than all the other pshatim. Yosef said from here, by Purim these days of Purim will never pass from the Yehudim. Right? Now, how do you know it's never going to pass? How do you know that the Yidden are going to celebrate, if that's the right word, Purim forever? Elamai must be ruach hakodesh. Their remembrance is not going to stop from their children. Same type limud. How do you know that it's never going to end? So it's ruach hakodesh, which is obviously came true. Fine. Now we mamish get into the nitty gritty of Hilchas Purim for the next half of Amud. Matanos of Yoinim, Tani Rav Yosef, mishloach manos ishlereyehu. It says you should have mishloach manos ishlereyehu, right? So which Rashi says mine ma'adanim, types of kishmaka things, good things, enjoyable things. Shtei manos. Now I find this mamish to be the most confusing part of Hilchas Purim for the Hamoinam. This next line. Shtei manos leish echad. 2 manos to one person. That's mishloach manos. So 2 foods to one person. Matanos of yoinim. Shtei matanos l'shnei bnei adam. 2 presents to 2 people. Meaning 1 each. Not 2 each. 1 each. Right? That's the way Rashi says. Right? Meaning, people get confused by Purim. They think, okay, I got to give 2 shalach manoses to 2 people. Right? And matanos of yoinim is 2 things, 2 meals to 2 of yoinim. No. That's not what it is. Even though when you read the Pashut, personally, as I would have to say that if I was reading it myself, I would say, okay, 2 matanos to 2 leevyonim. So that's 4 presents, 2 to each poor person. That's not the way Rashi says. It's 2 presents to 1 person. That's mishloach manos. Matanos leevyonim is 2 matanos to 2 bnei adam, meaning 1 each. Okay, that's what it is, and that's the way we pass it. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Shadalelu Rabbi Oishia. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi sent to Rabbi Oishia at Atma De'egla Tilsa. Right, the thigh of a calf. 2, as Rashi, as we had many times, Egla Tilsa means the 3rd born. Right, Peretz, the 3rd born is always the best, which is Peretz, by the way, in case anybody didn't figure that out. The 3rd born is the best, or the fattest. I don't know, the fattest. I don't know. It could be means the fattest meat. Right, Avi Khan is agreeing. There you go. So, yeah. So, but some say it doesn't mean that. Some say it means it's a third. It's a third of the growth, right? That meaning of when it's a third, when it's grown a third, that's the best. Okay, but Rashi learns it's a third. So he sent that begarba the chamra and a bottle of wine. Mamish, you see, Mamish, this is he's ahead of his times. How about ruach hakodesh for that? A piece of meat and a bottle of wine, right? So Shalach Lei, so he sent to him Kiyamta on Tamid base. Now Kiyamta benoi, I'm sorry, Kiyamta banu Rabbeinu, you makayim in us umashloach manos ishlereyu, because you sent out 2 manos to each person, right? To trei manos ika. Now these next 2 words, matanos leevyonim, most take it out. Because why was he makayim matanos leevyonim? He only gave it to 1 person, right? So if you see those letters there, most take it out. Because he wasn't Mekayim matanos leevyonim. Right? He was only Mekayim 1. The chiddush is that he was Mekayim it with the drink. It doesn't have to be manos, usually means 2 portions, maybe it has to be 2 types of meat. So the chiddush is, according to that, is that wine could be one of the manos. So wine and meat could be one of the manos. Right? Fine. Rabba Shadali Lamari Barav Biarabaya. He sent to Rabba sent to Mari Barav through Abaya, meaning Abaya was the shliach. What did he send him? Malay Taska to Kaspa. He sent a basket full of tamarim dates. Umali Kasa Kimcha Davshuna. And he sent him a cup full of flour, roasted flour. Samalei Abaya, Hashta Omar Mari. Now what Mari's going to say about you, again, Abai was the shliach to bring it. He's going to say that Mari's going to say, if a chakla, if somebody poor becomes a king, yeah, dikula mitzavar lo'nachas, he's not going to take the basket from his neck. Meaning, if somebody becomes wealthy, so you got to upgrade. You got to upgrade your mishloach manos, right? You're sending him the same junk that you sent when you were poor, but you're rich now. Right? Or you're chashuv now. You're not going to be mekayim. That's what he's going to send back to you. Right? Because it's not chashuv. Meaning if a rich guy gives you a mishloach manos of, a beer and, whatever, a cheap one, a bacharish type thing, a candy with a beer, or a candy with a bottle of grape juice, you're not going to think chashiva. Say, this is what this wealthy guy does. So that's what Abai had said. He's not going to be impressed with this. So he sent back to him, Malek Taska, he sent him back a basket of what do you call it? Ginger, and a full case of long peppers. So Abai said, Hashta Amar Mar. Now he's going to say, I sent him sweet foods, and he sent me sharp foods, which is not a chesar, which is a chesaron. Right? So basically, Abai was, yeah.
So we're learning for why the Gedolim commenting on the Shalach Manos. On the other hand, you see that the Gedolim knew what people sent, not like Zayn Gesund Rosh Yeshivas and Rabbanah who never see it. It just goes into the kitchen, into the pile.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I heard a shir from a Nissen Kaplan years ago. Nissen Kaplan, he used to be in Mir, now he has his own yeshiva. He said you should be makbid. He said he had, when anybody brought a shalach manos to him, he would be makbid to look at it, to be makayim. to be Mekayim the mitzvah, that to get a hana from it. But it's very interesting, this Gemara, because what comes out is that it sounds like, from at least from Abaya, that if you taka send something not chashuv, then you may not be yotze the mitzvah. So there's a big machlokes between the Trumas Hadeshen and the Manos Halevi as to what the reason is for mishloach manos, right? Is it for the seuda of Purim, or is it just to provide achdus, to make better friendship? And there's like 10 nafkaminas, right? So one of them is if it's for the seudas Purim, so then it has to be something that you could eat for seudas Purim. If it's for friendship, then it has to be something chashuv, right? Or let's say you're going away for Purim, so you send somebody mishloach manos before Purim, or he's going away, so you give it to him before Purim. If it's for friendship, maybe, right? If it's for the seudas Purim, it's nothing, because you didn't, right? So these type of nafkaminas, and also the same thing with how chashuv it is, right? If it's for friendship and you send somebody a junk, then you're not being marba friendship. Okay, so those are the nafkaminas. Fine. Amar Abai, let's see. When I left Rabba's house to go to Mari, Parav, I was full. When I got there, they brought me 60 plates with 60 different types of foods. That sounds like a Purim seuda. And I ate 60 portions, right? Ubishula basrayu, and the last bishul that they gave me, the last cooked food, have a korulate tzlei keder. They called it tzlei keder, which is roast that's made in a pot, meaning it's something that's food that's made in a pot without any liquid, right? Ubai lemechas tzoya basra, and after I ate it, I wanted to eat the plate too, right? So the question is, what does that mean? Was that a compliment, or was it too much? He's saying that it was so good he even wanted to eat the plate, right? From Rashi, it sounds like it was not a compliment. From Rashi, it sounds like that it was not a compliment. What are you saying?
In the art scroll, it's sort of some soifa says it's talking about Shas. There's 60 mesechtas in Shas, and he gave him the piece, the roast is marumas to Carbon Pesach. He gave him the Carbon Pesach. So he wanted to learn the whole mesechta
on Purim.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That's
so the whole thing is a mashal.
Wanted the whole plate. The art scroll brings it some soifa. Yeah.
Wow. So the whole thing is a mashal. I hear. Yeah. I'll say it's a very good.
I think the Maharsha says that the plates were made of sugar or something sweet. So Yitaka wanted to eat the plates, but he was too full. He couldn't.
Oh yeah, because that's ahead of the times. Aren't they trying to make biodegradable plates nowadays? Right. I hear.
They have them already.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So maybe you should. Maybe that's what we should start doing for Shalach Manas.
Okay, I just saw it in the news today. They came out with something in Germany, an edible train ticket. It's made with marijuana oil.
Wonderful. That's what you need? A train ticket?
A train ticket that's edible.
That's what you need, is a whole train full of high people.
Gershon, were you reading a newspaper from today? I'm just curious.
I think he took the train somewhere.
Right, clearly.
He took a trip.
I'm allergic to marijuana.
Read the Agamayan Journal from the 1960s. What are you doing over there?
That was today's news.
There you go. In Cleveland.
I read the news today. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So Amar Abaya, Hainu Damri Inchi. This is what people say. Kafin Anya v'lo yada. A poor person doesn't know when he's hungry, right? Meaning because he was going to eat the plate even. Inami, Ravcha lepsima shchiach. There's always room for dessert, right? Ravcha lepsima, space for sweet things. Shchiach is common. So there's always room for dessert. Fine. Abaya barav and Rab Chanina barav and Machafli Sudasai Ladali. All they did was swap their meals. One, they would prepare the meal, and so here's the thing: is it Purim day or from year to year? Rashi said, I would have thought it's from Purim day, right? I take my meal and I send it up to you, and you send it to me. I keep saying send it up because I know
that's not what Rashi says.
Right? No, Rashi doesn't say. I would have thought that's pshat. Rashi says no, from year to year. Right? So what's the point? No? What was I saying? So 1 year one got the mitzvah, the other year the other one got the mitzvah.
No, it's not talking about the. Is it talking about the mitzvah? It's just saying that they.
So what was the point?
They ate together.
So what is this stuff?
Saying what is there any halach was to learn from this? Oh,
No.
so 1 second. So there is. Some want to learn out from this that you're supposed to eat the Purim seuda together with friends. Don't eat it yourself. It's much more enjoyable to eat it with friends, right? Okay, but that's I know that my mother-in-law told me that that Remendel Zaks and Rabban Cutler lived in the same apartment building in the Upper West Side, and one would take an apple and an orange, whatever, on Purim morning, send it upstairs. The other one would take it, send it back down, and that was the end of mishloach manos for them. That's I heard it from the that's this Gemara reminded me of that. But that's not the way Rashi's learning the Gemara. The Rashi's learning it.
I'm not macabre that there wasn't a nice bottle of wine in there with the fancy.
It could be.
What was their theme? What was their theme?
Oh,
the theme was fruit, and it could be
apple and orange.
I don't know.
They were dressed up also with fruit.
I don't know. But
That's
opposite track.
Yeah.
If someone received from the Gedolei Adoir anything more than an apple and an orange, there's no marbereus there. It's embarrassing. How do you take such a thing from a Gadol Adoir? He sent an apple and an orange. You would accept it at least. The beginning of the Amud.
I'm saying the Gadol Adar sends me anything, I'll take it.
I don't know. It's a shtickle, the opposite of marbereus. If he sends you a gourmet wine with the Igla Tulsa from the Gadol Adoir, well, who am I? What's going on over here?
You're saying when Chaim Kanievsky sends out that spray gift to people, it's no good, you're saying?
Look, if you send it to me, I'm
just check your bank account. That's what it is. You must have given them a check.
The Rebbe's taught Paris.
$540 you get.
What are you saying, Rapana?
The Rebbe's always have that. They had Paris students, Paratish. They taught Paris.
True.
They gave out Paris.
Yeah, except it's very good, Henoch, but Rabbaran didn't have Paris dish.
I guess they had a secret. It was a secret Paris dish. It must be. I don't know. Back then, that was candy, right? That was the candy. They didn't have. Anyways, okay, whatever it is.
Jacob, what about it has to be right for the seuda?
So apple and orange is right for us. Back then, it was right for a seuda. No. I don't think that's what she said, apple and orange. I don't know if that means that that's the way exactly what it was.
Maybe he needed that for the duck l'orange for the seuda.
Maybe. Anyways, now the next Gemara, the most famous Gemara in Megillah by far. Omar Rava Mechayev.
Marchuk fell asleep a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay, so Omar Rava. Yeah, Mechayev in.
He's just being Mekayim the second shot in the Gemara.
I am completely here and waiting for that comment.
There you go. Okay, so Omar Rava Mechayev inish l'psume bepuria. Every person is chayev to drink on Purim adilayoda bein orur haman levaruch Mordechai till he knows, or till he does not. See, already I was Mekayim. Till he doesn't know the difference between orur haman and baruch Mordechai. And then Taisus, the top Taisus, says, "Yerushalmi arura zeresh brucha Esther arurim kol Rishayim bruchim kol Yehudim." Right, which is different than
Rashi
the
says
l'shtaka
b'yayin. Rashi says l'shtaka b'yayin.
Yeah. Right. It means l'shtaka. It means to get drunk. There's no two ways about it. Shaila is okay. So then, let's see the next Gemara. So Rabbi Rav Zera of the Sudas Purim Bali Adadi, they made a Suda together. Ifsum, and they got drunk. Right? Come Rabba Shachti the Rab Zera. So Rabba got up and shechted Rab Zera. L'machar boy rachmi v'achi. And the next day, meaning you take the Gemara at face value, he shechted him and he killed him, and the next day did Tchias HaMeis. Right? Shana, Amar Lei, the next year he said to him, Nesi Mar v'nevet Sudas Purim Bali Adadi. Let's go make another Suda. He said, slow down. He says, Amar Lei. Not every year we're going to have a nace. I am not going to your Purim Suda to this year, right? Okay, so this is the Shiloh. Is this Gemara really true? I mean, true. It's true. Is it a mushal? Is it not a mushal? Right? So
I know it's late, but the Gemara in Chulin It's the same Machlokes here about a hot knife. What comes first, the cutting or the burning by shefting? Right. And it's the same Machlokes here. I say it's Rav Zera Paskins that the burning comes first. Or one of the opposite. They said, how does he know? Because they say he used a hot knife here.
Right, then he shefted it, right?
That's
very, yeah.
The first Amud Chulin, and that's what stuck, Aaron. That was it. After that, I know nothing else.
Eretz, you've not once been yet to the mitzvah of Chayav Adam.
Yeah, but anyway, so okay, so the shaila is it a mushal? Is not a mushal? Different. There's all sorts of different pshatim, right? The Mashal says it certainly wasn't. Most say that this is not literally what happened. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says what happened was he embarrassed him, and embarrassing somebody is like killing him. So then he asked megilah. That's Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's pshat. Either way, fine. Now, also just to point out, what does it mean? So what does that mean? What are you not supposed to know? So the Mishnah Berurah brings the gematria. You shouldn't know the gematria, so you don't have to drink that much. The Pashup Pshat, the way most seem to say, I don't know most, but the Mishnah Berurah at least, is not Pshat that you're supposed to start singing Baruch, Haman, and Arur Mordechai. That's not what Adal Yoda means. The way the Mishnah Berurah understands it, it's until you don't know which Taiva was better. Because the bottom line is, all we needed was Arur Haman. We didn't need Baruch Mordechai. That was a bonus. That Mordechai was what do you call it? Appointed to higher levels. What we need, we just needed to be saved. So, but it was even a Taiva, meaning it was a double Taiva Hashem did. So the way the Mishnah Berurah says, you drink enough that you just don't know which Taiva was better. You get confused with the Taivas, which it's obvious that the Arur Haman Taiva was the better of the two. That's all you're drinking for. That's the way the Mishnah Berurah says it.
Didn't we have something else with two Taivas a few weeks ago on the Gemara?
Yeah, we had something, right?
Taiva Meitiv.
Oh, Taiva Meitiv. Yeah, very good. That must have been a Taiva Meitiv. Yeah. Okay, so very good. So Amarav, it's very late. Wow, it's late. Amarav, Mechayev Inish Psumim Bepuria. You just did that. I'm sorry. Amarav, Seudas Purim Shachla Belayla. Seudas Purim they eat at night. Layotzi de Chavasa. You're not yotz at night. My timer, you may Mishna v'Simcha Ksiv, because it says you may days of Mishna and Simcha. That's where some have the minig to dafka eat after Tainus Esther a dairy meal, not a fleishik meal, so that people will not get confused and think that your yotze, the mitzvah, the Seudas Purim at night. If you eat fleishiks, you might think you're yotze. So that's why many have the minig to eat milchiks. Like this, nobody's going to confuse it, because chas v'shalom, to have a Seudas mitzvah, that's milchiks. Okay, well, what about all those at Shvuis and maybe Yom Tov? We're not going there now. Yeah, okay, right. Rav Ashi, Havayasa commander of Kahana. Rav Ashi was sitting in front of Noga, and it was the day was almost over, and the Rabbanan didn't come. Amrulay, my time alay also Rabbanan. Why didn't Rabbanan come? Dilma treaty b'sudas Purim. Maybe they're busy with Purim, right? So now again, this was to the Besmerish. This was not. It's supposed to come to the Besmerish after Purim. Yeah, fine. So Amrulay v'loy hava efshel l'michle baruta. Why didn't they eat it? Why didn't they eat the Purim Seuda last night? Amrulay, he said to him, you didn't hear what Rava said? Seudas Purim shachla b'layla yotze yidei chavasa. You're not yotze with the Seudas Purim that you eat at night. So Amrulay or Amar Rava hachi or Amrulay in, he said to him yes. And Tananami nei Arvin Zimnin, he learned it 40 times. He chazered it 40 times. The domile commanded manach b'kisei until it was like in his pocket, right? So meaning so that he wanted to make sure he didn't forget that. Seemingly, it seems like he had known this, and then he seemed to have forgotten it. So then he decided to learn it 40 times in order to make sure he knew it well. Okay, let's just do till the next Mishnah. Yeah, so that's the end of the halacha l'maisa part of Purim, matanos of yonim. Not really matanos of yonim, but at least mishloach manos and the drinking. Fine. Ein bein Yom Tov l'Shabbos and Yom Tov. There's no difference between. What?
I'm just wanting. I have no idea if it's right that the 40 is maybe connecting Kabbalah Satira is 40 days. So there's another Kabbalah Satira on Purim, so it's 40.
Purim. Oh yeah, maybe Taka. I hear that because I don't know where number 40 come from.
Yeah, like why put 40? Yeah.
Right. or 101 times maybe, right? Yeah, very okay. Masking. So Zok the Mishnah ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos alaychol nefesh b'bayit. Like we finished Bay a little while ago. The only difference between Shabbos and Yom Tov, they're all the same except Eichel Nefesh, where on Yom Tov you're allowed to cook, and on Shabbos you're not allowed to cook. So Gemara asks, for Machshirei Eichel Nefesh, meaning can you make if you need to make a pot in order to cook, can you do that? That's Machshirei Eichel Nefesh. It's mashma that they're both equal, that you're not allowed to do it. So Masis and the like Rabbi Yehuda, and our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Tanya ain't ben Yom Tov the Shabbos, Elo Eichel Nefesh. There's no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos, only Eichel Nefesh. Rabbi Yehuda Matir af Machshirei Eichel Nefesh. He says even Machshirei Eichel Nefesh, meaning again you're allowed to make a knife if you need to make a knife, a fork if you need to make a fork, etc., etc. My time of Tanakama. Why did Tanakama hold you not allowed to? Amakor, because he'd say who v'loy Machshiro. You're allowed to cook for Shabbos, for Yom Tov, I'm sorry, but not cook things that help you cook. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Lachem, it says Lachem, but Lachol Tzorchechem means you're allowed to cook for yourself. You're allowed to do malacha for everything. Right? Oh, but the Tanakama, it says lochem. Means you're allowed to cook for yourself, but you're not allowed to cook for goyim, and you're not allowed to cook for dogs, that's why you're not allowed to have guests. On Yom Tov, you're not allowed to have goyish guests. On Shabbos, you are allowed to, because Shabbos, there's no cooking. Yom Tov, you're allowed to cook, you're not allowed to cook for a goy. The other one, it says, the other sheet that says who. Ksiv hu, ksiv lochem. It says who and lochem. Kan b'machshirin she'ef shalah says a erev Yom Tov. One is talking about machshirin that you're able to make an erev Yom Tov, and which you would not be allowed to do on Yom Tov. And kan b'machshirin she'ef shalah says a erev Yom Tov. And one is talking about machshirin that you're not allowed to do, that you were not able to do on Yom Tov. Meaning, according to him, Rabbi Yehuda only allows things that could not have been taken care of before Yom Tov. But if they could have been taken care of before Yom Tov, then you're not allowed to make it on Yom Tov, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. And again, this Tosfos, I'm sorry to say something more important, but Tosfos says, the second Tosfos on the bottom says that same thing applies to food. You don't have a blanket heter to just cook food on Yom Tov. If the food you're going to be eating on Yom Tov is going to taste just as good if you make it before Yom Tov, then lechatchila you have to make it before Yom Tov. So let's say filter fish, or some salmons, or jello, or these type of ice cream, these type of things that are going to be just as good from before Yom Tov, then you really are supposed to cook it before Yom Tov, like this Gemara says. Okay, sorry for going so over time, but there's a lot here today. All right, good enough. Can I have my phone, please? Yeah.
My wife had a good question over Shabbos.
Yeah.
Moshe's, at least we were told, at least by the Joshua and stuff, that Moshe's real name was Tuvia, yeah?
So you think he had a bunch of different names?
Yeah, but the opinion of Klal Yisrael being saved, one of the Inyanim that they were saved out of Eretz Mitzrayim was keeping their Yiddish names. Moshe was a name that was given by Bas Paro.
You mean that the word Moshe was given by Bas Paro? They asked this.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody asked this question.
My theoretical answer was, and I said I was going to ask you or someone, but my theoretical answer was he was raised in Beis Paro. Yeah, that like a Pashuva. They're raised with their English names. It's hard for people to kind of go back and change it. Your name's Scott, and then all of a sudden you're Yecheskel Tzvi or something like that. Like it doesn't always work that way. So like he was raised as Moshe. That was what I could have thought of, but I can't think of any other possible.
I don't remember the Terutzim now. You're right. It's this week's Parsha already, right?
It was last week's. last week because it was on my daughter's parsha sheet from school.
Why?
We're from in South Bend, man. My kids learn parsha and Navi. It's crazy.
A week early? A week early they learn it?
Maybe she just asked the question. I don't remember.
Maybe they're South Bend. Maybe they're more advanced than us over here.
Some of the things my kids are learning in school, I'm kind of like, I don't know how to help them. I'm going first time myself officially.
I hear that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Have a night.
Tag isn't.